Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Again, thank you to everyone who's joining us today. We're excited to bring this session to you. I am here with Yotam Kramer, VP of Marketing here at Scream, and Ramel Levin. He is the Chief Survey Master at Global Surveys. We're thrilled to have both of you here today. For those of you who have not read our report on the 2024 State of Big Data Analytics, it's an excellent report, a lot of really surprising insights in this one. And the biggest of those is bill shock. So this is what we're going to be discussing primarily today. And I'm going to let our speakers give a quick introduction for themselves. Ramel, since you're our guest, do you want to start?
Sure, thank you very much, Allison. I'm Ramel Levine, and I'm the Chief Survey Master at the Global Surveys, and this is actually our second survey with the Scream. And that's it, a little bit about myself.
Great, your top.
Hi, everybody. My name is Yotam Kramer, and I'm the VP Marketing at Scream. Happy to be here.
Thank you both. Here's our quick agenda. We will leave a couple of minutes for Q&A at the end. So if you do have a question during the session, go ahead and put that in the questions box or the chat, and we'll get to it at the end. So Ramel, I'm going to go over to you here to give a quick recap of this survey for people who may not have read it yet. If you want to start.
Sure. So thank you again, Allison. The survey was conducted with 300 senior data and FinOps leaders in the US, which means titles like CDO, head of data, FinOps, and more. All the companies surveyed had an annual cloud spend of at least $5 million. They came from 10 industries, which were roughly split equally, so around 10% per industry. Our goal in the survey was to understand a little bit more about analytics costs, big data challenges, cost performance issues, and the impact of large scales analytics. Can we move to the next slide? So you can see here a little bit more information about the survey respondents. They all came through a research panel, which is basically companies that have lots of people who are willing to respond to a survey, highly profiled. They were all recruited based on the profile we were looking for, all invited through email. And that's basically it. I will be sticking here if you have any questions about the methodology of the survey at the end of the webinar today.
Great, Ramel, thank you so much. It's really nice to have you on for that background. Now, your Tom, moving on to you. As our head of marketing, you have a lot of insight into the survey as well. So, why are so many companies experiencing this bill shock that we're talking about in big data analytics specifically?
Um, I think that the first thing I wanted to say here is we need to understand what does bill shock means in this area. And essentially, it means that when you deal with data, especially with systems that are consumption-based, sometimes you don't know in advance what will be the bill at the end of the month because it's based on the consumption. And what we see and what we hear from the survey and what we learn from the survey is that many companies, as you can see on the slides, 71% of companies actually experience bill shock. And that's the end of the month where they actually read how much they're paying for their data platform, storage, data analytics, whatever you want to call it. And they are surprised, and unfortunately not happily surprised, by the cost of analytics, by the cost of data movement, by the cost that has anything to do with the data pipelines, and generally speaking, with data. Now, there are a lot of reasons that we've uncovered within the survey that leads to this bill shock. One is very obvious. I think that's the fact that data all around us is exploding, right? The amount of data in the world, not just with the data-driven companies or with a specific industry, this or that, but generally speaking, data is all around us. It's exploding. Digital data, of course, there are contributing factor to why it's exponentially growing. Things like machine learning, AI. We're in the area of ChatGPTs and other stuff which are creating more and more data. As an example, again, world data. So data is exploding, and as a result, obviously, companies that deal with data are dealing with growing data. That's, I would say, one reason that is creating this bill shock. But secondly, is what I like to call these unpredictable workloads. Like companies often, when they start a data project or buy a data platform, or they think that they're going to do one thing, two things, three things with it, whatever it may be. But then other projects comes into play. Suddenly they want to start doing their own machine learning models, and they want to analyze more. They want to get to deeper insights. So workloads that were unpredictable, or things that they haven't thought of that they want to do, they start doing. And as a result, obviously it has an impact on the bill at the end of the month. I mentioned it in two words, but so I will end with that one. Definitely the machine learning and the AI projects is also like a big uh, um, contributor to the fact that companies are experiencing bill shock. Every company that we talk with these days are either in the middle of trying to implement some sort of or create their own models, or utilize other models, or analyze more data to create more efficient machine learning models. We see that day in and day out, and this is also definitely a huge contributing factor to the bill shock. There are, of course, others, and you're more than welcome to download the full report and see others. But I think these are like the main three that I would like to focus on today.
Great, thanks, Yotam. Now, based on the survey, what are the most significant findings when it comes to cost challenges here in big data?
um, let's go to the next slide with the answers. I want to take a different approach to answering this question, basically. When you see this, and I took this directly from the survey, it talks about the top areas of dissatisfaction with current data stack, and you see that number one is talking about budget, or the total cost of analytics, right? This is the bill shock that we talked about. But when you look at number two, three, and basically the entire list, like if you look at the number two, which is the time that it takes to get to the insights, the time of analytics, the performance, and you can see that or there is a strong link between the two, right? Because you can spend more money and improve the performance, right? That's absolutely, put more power into your systems, add additional servers, CPUs, whatever you use in order to do a stronger data throughput through the systems, and increase the performance. But then, of course, it has a negative impact on the cost. So this delicate balance between cost and performance is definitely, connected. And when you see number three and four, they're all also connected eventually to the bill shock, to the cost that we talked about before. Because when you want to scale, again, you can do it, right? You spend more money on, like I said before, on additional servers, additional horsepower, and it has an impact, so you can scale. That's great, but then again, the cost becomes higher and higher to the point where the CFOs of the organization is starting to say, "Hey, take it down a notch," or whatever. And number four, of course, I talked about this in the previous slide, is the significant increase in machine learning, AI projects, which creates another I would say, flow of data usage in order to create those different models and so on. So even though we see here like different types of areas where the data experts from the surveys feel dissatisfied, at the end of the day, you can definitely connect both of them to the cost and to the performance and to the scale and to the balance between those three. And we see that again day in and day out of data experts, like trying to manage these things, like trying to do as much as they can within their budget. And then at the end of the month, they get an unexpected bill, and then they try to maybe to optimize something a little bit, or whatever they want to do. We'll get to that in a few minutes. Um, um, so these are, I would say, the insights that or the main insights that we discovered that are creating those bill shocks that we discussed before.
Thanks, Yotam. Now, we hear a lot about companies make, like you said, it's a delicate balance, and they're making these compromises in order to cut costs and optimize them. What kind of compromises are these? What are we seeing? And what's that impact on their data and analytics?
Okay. So if we go to the next slide, this slide is what I call the sad slide. And it's the sad slide because absolutely what we learned from the survey is that people compromise. And in a digital world where we expect to get everything all at once in a single click, and so on, it's almost a bit of a surprise that people need to compromise, but they have to compromise because of the reasons that we talked about before, right? Because of the cost, or because of the performance, or because of the scale, or because the system simply doesn't have enough horsepower, or whatever you want to call it. So we see different types of compromises, right? One of the compromises is people simply trying to create simpler queries, but it has a huge cost, right? Because when you create simpler queries, you get to lesser insights. And lesser insights basically can mean a lot of things depending on the industry and what is it that you're trying to achieve. But it can mean less of a customer satisfaction. It can mean less revenues. In ad tech companies, for example, if you analyze and you create simpler queries and not exactly the complicated queries that you want to run in order to get to those significant insights, it actually has an impact on the bottom line in terms of revenue. So that's one type of compromise. The second compromise is the volume of projects. Let's not do 4 important projects. Let's just do 3 because we cannot afford number 3 or number 4, or we cannot or we don't have the capacity to handle it. Another compromise that we see again a lot is a compromise on the size of the data set,
Yeah.
which again comes at a cost. So we see a lot of companies saying, okay, we'll not analyze 100% of the data, we'll analyze 90%, 80%, 70%. And again, let's just think about the impact of not analyzing more, but analyzing less. Again, think about whatever, a telco company that analyzes user behaviors, and eventually this has, fast forward, has an impact on customer churn, right? So if you don't analyze the entire database, or if you don't analyze in a very smart, in-depth way to get to all the data and to all the insights that you want to get from your data, then it has an impact on churn. I can give additional examples, right, of other industries on how they uh, they don't analyze enough, or don't analyze fast enough, or don't get to the meaningful insights, and how it has impact on their uh, bottom line. And this is why I call it the sad slide, because the slide of compromises to me is like is a sad definitely in 2024, where the entire world relies on data and getting insights from data, and new companies are being created all the time that relies on data. But still, we see a lot of compromises, and that's it.
Yeah, a sad slide indeed. And I think coming off of Halloween, it could also be a scary slide for a lot of companies as well. Um, Now, flowing right in from that, what are some strategies that people can take, that companies can take, really actionable right now to, manage analytics more effectively, manage costs more effectively?
Okay, so here I'm going to give like a disclaimer. I know that we're talking about the survey and the results behind the survey and so on, but I'm the VP marketing of Scream, so I'm going to take the Scream approach towards answering this question. If we go to the next slide. So I would say that first and this is, I will start with something general, is to think outside the box. Like if I said before, I gave an example of companies simply throwing more money on data throughput or more stronger machines or whatever. This is to me not thinking outside the box. This is just trying to put more of the same thing to the same problem. What Scream is doing, this is one of the things that we also saw in the survey, is we're actually taking the power of the GPU and the fact that the GPU can use parallelism in order to analyze more, quicker, faster. So the first, suggestion that I would say is look at GPUs not just as the thing that we all know about gaming or crypto or today AI, but think about GPUs as a solution to data issues because it can do things quicker, faster, and cheaper. That would be one thing. The second thing that I would suggest is to all the companies who are dealing with machine learning, trying to create new models and whatnot, is today one of the issues that we see with the machine learning and creating new models is the fact that you need to transfer the data from your database to another area, I would say, where the training actually takes place. And this again takes time, money, effort, whatever. So try to find solutions where you can actually do in database machine learning to reduce the data transfer and external processing cost. And of course, there are other ways on looking at things. If I look at solution number three, there are obviously other suggestion and ways to optimize your data processing, data throughput. It's an entire world. What I will say here is that we definitely see it more, especially in cloud-based environments, especially in public clouds, because these things cost a lot of money, especially when you do a lot of data processing in the cloud. But if I want to connect this slide to the previous slide, I think what we are talking about here is the fact that you don't really need to compromise if you think outside of the box, right? If you think about different solutions, and I know I'm talking about ahead, and these are things that I will probably say again in one or two slides, but I will start with a big tip for all of you who are listening to us right now, is not just to think about the problem or the issues or the challenges that you have right now, also plan ahead. Think about what will be your data situation in a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, and try to think on how you're going to manage everything strategically going forward.
That's an excellent point. Now, you mentioned machine learning a little bit in the last couple slides. These projects are obviously known for their high costs, despite their prevalence now. So what can companies watching do now to reduce those expenses without slowing down the progress that they're making?
So again, to a certain extent, I covered this in the previous slide, so I'll just reiterate. Once again, is look into GPU accelerated platforms that can process workloads, much faster than traditional platforms, reducing both the time and the cost. Absolutely. We talked a little bit about the fact that today there are solutions that can do all the machine learning training on the database itself without moving the data, which again can save you some time and dollars. And whenever you are using obviously GPUs, let's say um, uh, to address these machine learning cost challenges, look at other features things like to auto suspend and resume, so it will not run all the time, only when you need it, and prioritization options in order to do the processes in a more efficient way. And these would be, I would say, my main tips on addressing these things.
Great, thank you. And now you've of course mentioned GPUs several times. This is Scream after all. So, can you explain why they're becoming such a priority for so many companies, so many organizations, and how they fit into the strategy of trying to optimize cost?
So this time I will actually go back to the survey results, and I will say that according to the survey, we definitely see that adding GPU is becoming a very high priority to at least 75 of the respondents of the survey. Now, I will add something that is not written on the slide. I mean, it's no secret to everyone that GPUs, you know, we're in the era of GPUs, right? People are and companies are investing in them for various reasons. What we also see is that sometimes GPU utilization is not high enough, meaning companies are investing in GPU infrastructure for whatever reason, but there are still a lot of times where their GPUs are in idle time. What we're saying, okay, is hey, you have a very strong GPU, with thousands of cores compared to dozens or compared to a CPU, and it's sitting idle. You already bought it, you paid for the infrastructure, or you have it maybe in the cloud or whatnot. So utilize it for your data needs. You have it already, and if you don't have it already, you can there are many companies like Scream that can have this technology of data analytics in the cloud, so you don't even need to buy the actual infrastructure for it. Besides the fact that we are seeing that companies are prioritizing the use of GPUs, and the fact that we know that GPUs are uniquely suited for parallel processing, making them like an ideal for tasks like machine learning and faster analytics. Definitely, by leveraging GPUs, companies can achieve faster data processing at a lower cost, which is basically a win-win, right? In other words, no more compromises, or I would say lesser compromises compared to what we talked about a few slides before.
Yeah, that's huge. Now, do you want to speak to our key takeaways here, Yotam? And
Sure.
what people can do next if they want to take action on some of the material here?
Sure, absolutely. So again, I'm going to say a few things that I've said already. One is that companies don't have to compromise. Okay, there are other out-of-the-box solutions that deals with the bill shock that we covered today. Scream is one example. I know that there are others, but more importantly, it's not about compromising. I think it's really about planning ahead, which I also mentioned, because to think to think only about the problems that you have right now in front of you, that I need to do this task and that task, is not strategically thinking about data, right? And it's not strategically thinking about how data can actually help the business that you work with or you work in. So I would say that, again, for me, the key takeaway is one, don't compromise. And I would say two is plan ahead. And of course, since I'm coming from Scream and I see the results that we can generate by utilizing GPUs, is definitely look into adding a GPU powered data platform, engine, whatever you want to call it, but definitely look into adding it to your existing data stack in order to improve performance, reduce the cost, and do better machine learning.
Okay. Well, thank you both so much, Yotam. It was Excellent session. And we did have a couple of questions come in if you have a second here. So we do have a few more minutes. First question is, how could organizations effectively forecast and budget for their big data analytics expenses? And I think you did cover a little bit of this, but if you want to go into some more detail.
Yeah. So I covered a little bit. So obviously, the first thing is to analyze historical data. I mean, you can always try to plan ahead based on historical data. I'll give a very simple example. Take a look at the uh, uh, data platform bill in the last 12 months. See in percentage how much it expanded or grew, and you can definitely try um, to base on that on future projects, assuming that you're not changing something significant. You're not adding new projects, or
Right.
you're not thinking about something new. But definitely use historical data in order to predict what's coming. Um, and there are obviously tools out there, cost monitoring tools that you can use in order to also forecast. Um, and last but not least, really, like I said before, is planning. It's to collaborate across departments, think about the new projects that are coming in the next year, in the next couple of years, in the next month. Think about if you are not doing machine learning today or trying to train your own model to do whatever you want to do. It's most likely that you are going to try to do something in that area
Mhm.
in the coming whatever months, years. So try to take all of these into account when you build your budget for data projects, platforms, and whatnot.
Thanks, dear Tom. And question number two, how can organizations balance the need for faster analytics with the need to control cost?
Okay, I think basically that's like something that we covered throughout the session. I would say that in a perfect world, organization will not have to choose between balancing the two, right? Because they will able to do things quicker for a lesser amount of money. But we are in real life,
Mhm.
right? And in real life, companies do have to make these compromises, and it's fine. We're not like um, um, uh, that's the reality, right? You have a budget. There is only some things you can do with this budget. So I'll just say a couple of things. Besides, of course, look into solutions that we talked about before, like Scream, like using GPUs, like whatever, and so on. But I would definitely say something as simple as, hey, let's prioritize. You have a lot of projects. Think about what's first, what's second, what's third, and that should be your goal. And of course, look into solutions, like I said before, like Scream, like others that can help you.
Okay. One last question for you, kind of going back to the original survey. Were any of the results here surprising to you and why?
I'll start, and Ramel, if you have something that surprised you, feel free to jump in. I would say that one thing that surprised me is, when we started this project with Ramel and his team, we basically tried to answer, like Ramel mentioned the beginning of the presentation. We tried really to answer the question of the balance between cost and the performance, right? And again, together with Ramel and his team, we're able to really to generate this great uh, survey, which had some great insights. If there is one thing that surprised me, is the amount of companies and people within those companies who actually suffer from the bill shock. I mean, I was under the impression before the survey that people are know what they expect from their upcoming bill when we're talking about data platforms, data analytics, and so on. But more and more, both from the survey as well as from talking to to customers, to prospects, to people within the industry, I was surprised to see that, like I said in the survey, more than 70% are actually suffer from bill shock. This was a huge surprise, not a huge, but I would say a surprise for me that the number is so high. So
Mhm.
that was the surprise that I got from the survey.
Okay, well, that's it for questions. Again, thank you both so much for joining us today. It was a great session. And for those of you watching, we will send out the recording to everyone who registered. And if you would like to see the report, if you haven't seen it or want to read it again, you can find it here and we will include it in the email with the webinar recording. So thank you, Ramel. Thank you, Yotam, and great to have you on, and we will see you in the next one. Thanks.
Thank you, Alison.